Captain Jiho Kim pressed his face against the cold metal window of the spaceship. The red planet below grew bigger and bigger as they got closer. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. Something felt wrong about this place. "Captain, look. At these readings," said Lieutenant Mina Park. She was staring at her computer screen with worried eyes. "The energy signals are all mixed up. This doesn't look like a normal planet." Jiho walked over to look at her screen. Strange numbers flashed across it. He had been flying spaceships for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this before. Earth Command had told them this would be easy. Just go to Kepler 442b, check what minerals were there, and come back home. But nothing about this felt easy. "Sir, we're getting closer to the surface," called out pilot Taehyun. Oh, from his seat. "Should I land near those big crystal things?" Through the window they could see huge crystal formations sticking out of the ground like giant glass trees. They sparkled in the red sunlight, beautiful but strange. Between the crystals there were dark holes in the ground. Caves. "Take us down slowly," Jiho ordered. "Something doesn't feel right here." As their ship landed with a soft thud, Communications Officer Dai-Ho Lee suddenly sat up straight. "Captain, I'm hearing voices, not human voices. There's someone down there." Jiho felt his heart speed up. Earth Command had said this planet was empty. No intelligent life. Just rocks and minerals. But the voices were getting clearer through their communication system. "Can you understand what they're saying?" Jiho asked. Dai-Ho shook his head. "It's not any language I know, but they sound scared." The crew looked at each other. They all felt it now. Something was very wrong on this planet. "I'm going outside," Jiho decided. "Mina, Dai-Ho, you're with me. Everyone else, stay with the ship and keep the engines ready." They put on their space suits and walked outside. The air was thin but breathable. The crystal formations were even more beautiful up close, but they were broken. Many had been cut down, leaving sharp stumps in the ground. It looked like someone had been mining here. Then they saw movement in one of the cave entrances. A figure stepped out, tall and thin, with skin that looked like it was made of glass. It was clearly not human, but it walked on two legs and had 2 arms like a person. The creature saw them and froze. Then it made a sound calling to others in the cave. More figures appeared. They all looked scared. "Don't move," Jiho whispered to his crew. "Let them come to us." One of the creatures, braver than the others, walked closer. It pulled out a small device and pointed it at them. Suddenly, words came out of the device in perfect English. "Are you with the hegemony?" the creature asked through the translator. Its voice sounded tired and hopeless. "The what?" Jiho asked. "We're from Earth. We're humans." The creature's large eyes went wide. "Humans? We have never heard of your species. Why? Are you here?" "We came to study this planet," Mina said. "We didn't know anyone lived here." The creature made a sound that might have been crying. "Not many of us are left. The hegemony took most of our people. They make us work in the deep mines. They take our children to other worlds. We are the Zephyrians, and we are dying." Jiho felt sick to his stomach. "How long has this been happening?" "Many years. The hegemony has 3 great civilizations. They are too strong. We cannot fight them. We can only hide." More Zephyrians came out of the caves. Jiho could see that many were hurt. Some were very old, others were just children. They all looked thin and tired. "Where are the adults?" Dai-Ho asked quietly. "Working in the mines," the first Zephyrian said. "Or dead. The hegemony does not care if we live or die as long as we dig their minerals." Suddenly, an alarm started beeping on Dai-Ho's communication device. He looked at it and his face went white. "Captain, I'm picking up signals. Big ships are coming this way. They'll be here in a few hours." The Zephyrians heard this and started running back toward the caves. The one with the translator turned back to Jiho. "You must leave now," it said. "If the hegemony finds you with us, they will kill you too. They do not allow other species to interfere." Jiho looked at his crew, then at the scared Zephyrians running for their lives. His grandfather had told him stories about times when good people had to choose between being safe and doing what was right. He had always wondered what he would do in a situation like that. Now he knew. "We're not leaving," he said firmly. "Not without you." The Zephyrian stared at him with those large, crystal-like eyes. "But why would you risk your lives for strangers?" Jiho smiled sadly. "Because that's what humans do." The attack came without warning. 3 large black ships dropped from the sky like angry birds. Their weapons lit up the red surface of the planet as they fired at the crystal trees where the Zephyrians lived. Captain Jiho Kim watched in horror from behind a rock. The beautiful crystal formations that had grown for thousands of years exploded into tiny pieces. Zephyrian families ran screaming from their homes as the laser beams cut through everything. "Captain, we have to do something," Lieutenant Mina Park whispered. Her voice was shaking with anger. Through his binoculars, Jiho could see Zephyrian children falling to the ground. Old ones who could not run fast enough were hit by falling crystal pieces. The black ships kept firing, even though the Zephyrians had no weapons to fight back. "Sir, those are hegemony attack ships," said Communications Officer Daeho Lee. "If we fight them, Earth Command will never forgive us. They told us not to get involved in alien wars." Jiho knew Daeho was right. If they attacked the hegemony ships, they would be in big trouble. Earth Command would call them criminals. They might never be allowed to go home again. Their families would be ashamed of them. But then he saw something that made his blood burn with anger. A small Zephyrian child, no bigger than a human 6-year-old, was trapped under a fallen crystal. The child was crying for help, but the adult Zephyrians were too busy running from the laser fire to save him. "That's enough," Jiho said quietly. Then he shouted, "All crew to battle stations. Mina, target their biggest ship." "Sir, if we attack them, we can never go back to Earth," Mina said, but her hands were already moving over the weapon controls. "I know exactly what this means," Jiho replied. "Fire." The Defiant Dawn was not built for fighting. It was just an exploration ship with small weapons for protection. But human technology had some advantages that the hegemony did not expect. Their energy shields were different from anything the aliens had seen before. The first shot from the human ship went right through the hegemony shields like they were made of paper. The big black ship spun around, surprised and damaged. "What the hell was that?" came an angry voice over the radio, in a language the translator turned into English. "This is Captain Kim of the human vessel Defiant Dawn," Jiho said into his microphone. "Stop attacking the civilians or we will stop you." The hegemony ships turned toward them. Now Jiho could see how big they really were. Each one was 3 times the size of his ship. They had weapons that could destroy a small city. "Humans?" the alien voice said. "We have never heard of your species. You will surrender now or be destroyed." "I don't think so," Jiho said. Mina hit them again. The battle was short but fierce. The human ship was small and fast. It could move in ways the big hegemony ships could not. When the aliens fired their huge weapons, the humans were already somewhere else. Engineer Hana Choi kept the ship's power running, even when the alien weapons hit their hull. Pilot Taehyun flew the ship like it was a bird, diving and spinning, to avoid the enemy fire. After 10 minutes, the hegemony ships were badly damaged. Black smoke poured from their engines. The biggest ship was spinning out of control. "This is not over, humans," the alien commander said. "The hegemony will remember this day. You have made enemies of the most powerful alliance in the galaxy." The 3 black ships limped away into space, their engines sparking and failing. Soon as they were gone, Jiho and his crew ran to help the Zephyrians. Medical Officer Subin Nam treated the wounded with her medical kit. The crystal beings watched in amazement as the humans worked to save lives. The young Zephyrian with the translator, who had told them his name was Veltar, came up to Jiho with tears running down his crystal-like face. "Your people," Veltar said, his voice full of wonder. "You sacrifice everything for strangers? You will never be able to go home because you saved us." Jiho looked around at his crew. They were all dirty and tired, but they were smiling as they helped injured Zephyrians. "This is what we do," he said simply. Just then, Daeho's communication device started beeping. He listened for a moment, then looked at Jiho with a sad face. Captain, it's Earth Command. They heard about the fight. They say we are no longer part of the Earth military. Our ship is, what's the word? Disavowed. If we come back to Earth, we will go to prison. The crew stopped what they were doing and looked at their captain. They had just lost everything, their jobs, their homes, their futures. All because they could not watch innocent people die. But Veltar stepped forward. Then we will share with you what we have never shared with any outsider, he said. Come with me. There is something you must see. He led them deeper into the caves to a place where the walls glowed with soft blue light. In the center of the cave was something that made the humans gasp in surprise. It was technology beyond anything they had ever imagined. The cave walls glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to breathe. Captain Jiho Kim reached out to touch one of the crystal formations and gasped. It was warm, like living skin, and it pulsed under his fingers like a heartbeat. This is our greatest secret, Veltar said, his voice full of sadness. We call it the living technology. These crystals are not just rocks, they are alive and they can think. Dr. Yoonji Shin, the ship's scientist, knelt down next to a small crystal that looked like a flower. As she watched, it slowly opened and closed its petals. Incredible, she whispered. It's responding to my presence. Veltar nodded. The crystals can fix broken things, make computers think faster, and even make other creatures stronger and quicker. But we never shared this with anyone because we knew other species would try to steal it from us. He looked at the human crew with his large, sad eyes. But you saved us when you had nothing to gain. You lost your home to help strangers, so we will trust you with our most precious gift. Lieutenant Mina Park was studying a crystal that looked like a tree branch. As she watched, it slowly wrapped itself around a broken piece of metal from their ship and began to fix it. This could change everything, she said in amazement. Over the next few days, the humans learned about the living technology. The crystals could grow into any shape needed. They could become part of a spaceship and repair damage automatically. They could make computers that thought like living brains. Most amazing of all, they could make humans faster and stronger without hurting them. But while they were learning, something else was happening across the galaxy. Communications officer Daeho Lee was monitoring radio signals from deep space when he suddenly sat up straight. Captain, you need to hear this, he said, his voice excited and scared at the same time. The radio crackled with voices speaking many different languages. The ship's computer translated them into English. Did you hear about the humans? They fought the hegemony. A small species stood up to the coalition? Impossible. They saved the Zephyrians and asked for nothing in return. Nothing. For the first time in my life, I have hope. The voices came from all over the galaxy. Species that had been slaves to the hegemony for hundreds of years were talking about the humans who had fought for strangers. Sir, Ensign Kyungjang said, looking at his communication screen, I'm getting direct messages. Dozens of them. Species I've never heard of are asking for our help. The messages told horrible stories. The Nereid people lived in the deep oceans of their world, but the hegemony had enslaved them to harvest rare minerals from the sea floor. They worked until they died, and their children were taken away to be slaves on other worlds. The Void Drifters had once been free travelers among the stars, but the hegemony had taken their ships and forced them to work as miners. They lived in terrible camps on airless moons, dreaming of the days when they could fly free. There were dozens of other species, all with the same story. The hegemony was too strong, too big, too cruel. They had given up hope of ever being free, until they heard about the humans. They're calling us the guardian species, Kyung said, reading more messages. They say no one in galactic history has ever fought for others without asking for payment or slaves in return. Dr. Yoonji began working with Zephyrian scientists to create new technologies. They combined human engineering with the living crystals to make tools that could help fight the hegemony, ships that could repair themselves, weapons that got stronger each time they were used, and communication devices that could reach across the galaxy without being detected. But the most important work was being done by Lieutenant Wu Choi and his security team. They were training volunteers from different species to fight together. It was not easy because each species was very different. The Nereids could control gravity, making heavy things light and light things heavy. The Void Drifters were masters of hiding, able to make their ships invisible to any scanner. The insect-like Kithara could think together as one mind, making them perfect for planning battles. It's like putting together a puzzle, Wu explained to Captain Kim. Each piece is different, but when they work together, they make something beautiful. More species joined them every day. The underground network grew stronger, passing messages and supplies from world to world. For the first time in centuries, the oppressed peoples of the galaxy were working together. But the hegemony was not sitting still. Long-range sensors began picking up massive ship movements. The three powerful civilizations that controlled the galaxy were gathering their fleets. "Captain," Mina said, her face pale as she looked at the sensor readings. "They're coming. A huge fleet, bigger than anything we've ever seen." "How many ships?" Jiho asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. 300, she replied. "Maybe more. And they're all heading straight for us." Jiho looked around at his small crew and their alien friends. They had 17 ships total, most of them not built for fighting. "Well," he said with a sad smile, "I guess we'll find out what we're really made of." The stars disappeared behind a wall of metal. 300 hegemony warships dropped out of hyperspace like a dark cloud covering the sky. Each ship was the size of a small city, bristling with weapons that could destroy planets. Captain Jiho Kim stood on the bridge of the Defiant Dawn and felt his heart sink. Through the view screen, he could see the massive flagship of Admiral Zethkar leading the fleet. It was 10 times bigger than any human ship, painted in the black and red colors that meant death to every species in the galaxy. "Sweet mother of," Pilot Taihyono whispered, then stopped talking completely. Lieutenant Mina Park's hands shook as she counted the enemy ships on her scanner. "Captain, they have enough firepower to turn this entire planet into space dust." The communication system crackled to life with a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "This is Admiral Zethkar of the Hegemony Coalition. You will surrender the terrorist vessel immediately. If you do this, we will grant the Zephyrians a quick death instead of the slow torture they deserve." Jiho looked around his bridge. His crew was scared, but their faces showed something else too. Determination. They had come too far to give up now. Engineer Hana Choi was at her station, her fingers flying over the controls as she managed the new living crystal technology that had been grown into their ship. The crystals pulsed with blue light along the walls, making the ship stronger than it had ever been. Communications Officer Diho Lee was coordinating with their small fleet of allied ships, 17 vessels against 300. It was impossible, but they were going to try anyway. "Response, sir?" Mina asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Jiho smiled. "Tell Admiral Zethkar that we're not going anywhere." The first attack came like thunder. The hegemony ships fired their massive weapons all at once, filling space with deadly energy beams. But the Alliance had learned to work together in ways the enemy had never seen. As the laser fire streaked toward them, the Nereid ships suddenly created gravity wells around the hegemony fleet. The massive enemy vessels, built for straight-line attacks, found themselves being pulled sideways into each other. Two of the largest ships crashed together in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. "Now!" Jiho shouted. The Void Drifter ships, invisible to all scanners, appeared behind the enemy, lines like ghosts. Their small, fast ships darted between the huge hegemony vessels, firing at engines and weapon systems before disappearing again. The Zephyrian ships were the most amazing of all. They were grown from living crystals, not built from metal. When the enemy weapons hit them instead of exploding, they absorbed the energy and used it to become stronger. Each shot made them harder to destroy. But the real surprise was how the humans coordinated everything. Captain Kim and his crew had studied every battle in human history, from ancient sword fights to space wars. They knew that big enemies could be beaten if smaller forces worked together perfectly. "Kythra ships use pattern 7, Jiho called into his communicator. "Nereids, gravity spin on my mark. Void drifters, hit their communications array." The insect-like Kythera moved as one mind. their ships dancing through space in perfect formation. They were small, but they moved so fast and so perfectly together that the enemy couldn't target them. Medical Officer Subin Nam was treating wounded crew members from other ships that had docked with theirs. Even in the middle of the battle, the humans were trying to save lives. "Their flagship is breaking through our line," Engineer Choi called out, watching her screens with wide eyes. Admiral Zethkar's enormous ship had pushed past the Allied defenses and was heading straight for the planet where the Zephyrian civilians were hiding. Its weapons were charging for a final attack that would kill millions of innocent people. "All ships, protect the planet," Jiho ordered. But they were too far away. The flagship would reach the planet before they could stop it. Unless... "Taehyun, set course directly for that flagship," Jiho said quietly. "Sir?" the pilot asked, not believing what he had heard. "You heard me. Full speed ahead." Lieutenant Park understood immediately. "Captain, no. We can't stop a ship that big by ramming it. We'll just be destroyed." "Maybe," Jiho said, watching the enemy flagship grow larger on the screen. "But maybe we can damage it enough to save the planet. Hana, transfer all power to the forward shields and the living crystal growth systems." The defiant Dawn raced toward the massive enemy ship like a tiny bullet aimed at a giant. On the bridge, everyone was quiet, except for the sound of their breathing and the hum of the engines. "Sir," Daeho said softly, "the other ships are following us. All of them." Jiho looked at his screen and saw something beautiful and terrible. Every Allied ship was racing toward the enemy flagship, ready to sacrifice themselves to save the innocent people on the planet below. "Well," he said with a sad smile, "if we're going to die, at least we'll die doing the right thing." The flagships' weapons turned toward them, charging for a shot that would destroy them all. The hegemony's defeat sent shockwaves across the galaxy, not because of the tactical victory, though the sight of Admiral Zethkar's flagship limping away in defeat was satisfying, but because of what came after. The Allied species had the opportunity to conquer. They held hegemony worlds, their fleets were scattered, their leadership in chaos. Any other galactic power would have seized the moment to build an empire. Instead, Captain Jiho Kim, now Admiral Kim, stood before the newly formed sanctuary. Coalition, and spoke words that would be remembered for generations. "We didn't fight to become conquerors. We fought to ensure that the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them." Dr. Yoonji Shin had become the coalition's chief scientist, overseeing the integration of biotechnology from dozens of species. The Zephyrian homeworld transformed into a beacon of cooperation, its crystal cities rebuilt as centers of learning and mutual defense. Lieutenant Mina Park commanded the first hybrid vessels, ships that blended human engineering with alien biotechnology, created not for conquest, but for protection. The coalition fleet patrolled space lanes, responding to distress calls from species that had never known help would come. On the bridge of the New Dawn, Admiral Kim received a transmission from Earth. After months of deliberation, humanity had officially recognized the Sanctuary Coalition. Earth itself applied for membership. "Welcome to the Coalition," Kim smiled, looking out at the stars where former outcasts now stood as equals. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the greatest strength came not from those who sought power, but from those willing to stand up for others who could not stand for themselves. In the end, they had not just saved the Zephyrians. They had saved the idea that mercy could triumph over might, that the forsaken could find sanctuary, and that sometimes the smallest acts of courage could reshape entire civilizations.